the desert of glass tears. The sun dipped low, melting into the horizon like a molten ember fading into ash. The sky above the parched kingdom of Azara was a restless canvas of bruised amber and violet. Restless winds stirring endless dunes that rippled like waves of liquid gold. In this barren realm, rain was more than a mere blessing. It was memory made tangible, a crystalline testament to moments long lost. Sora moved quietly over the dunes, her bare feet sinking softly into the warm sand with each step. A slender figure cloaked in a flowing azure robe that caught the last light of day. She carried a shallow woven basket strapped to her hip. Her eyes, deep and shimmering like the oasis waters of old tales, scanned the horizon with patient reverence. The desert wept in silence. Each night, the sky wept, tiny tears of glass that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. These were no ordinary droplets, but sacred remnants of forgotten joys, memories that had escaped the grasp of time and sorrow. Sora was the keeper of these glass tears, the sole guardian of the kingdom's buried happiness. Her hands, roughened by years of wandering the dunes, delicately picked up a bead nestled in the sand. It was a perfect sphere of translucent crystal, catching the twilight and refracting it into tiny rainbows. She pressed it gently to her palm, feeling the faint warmth of a laughter long past, an echo of a child's giggle, perhaps, or the soft sigh of a mother's lullaby. The wind whispered through the dunes, carrying with it the faintest tinkling, the soft chime of glass beads shifting in the shifting sands. Sora moved toward the jagged canyons that cut deep scars into the desert floor, silent cathedrals carved by the relentless hand of time. Here, the glass tears would be planted, and from them would grow the crystal flowers that hummed the past back to life. The flowers were delicate sculptures of light and sound, petals of spun crystal that shimmered in the desert moon, resonating with the forgotten joys held within their roots. As Sora reached the first canyon, the wind ceased as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Kneeling, she placed the glass bead carefully in a small hollow in the sandstone, murmuring a prayer older than memory. The crystal flower bloomed instantly, a delicate lattice of shimmering petals unfolding with a sound like a distant chime, a melody of lost moments returning to the world. Sora smiled softly, the ache of solitude momentarily softened by the magic she nurtured. The desert was silent again, but the air hummed faintly with the song of a forgotten joy. The desert night stretched endlessly, a vast ocean of stars shimmering coldly overhead. Sora stayed beside the newly blossomed crystal flower, her fingers brushing lightly against its delicate petals. The hum that rose from the flower was gentle, almost like a lullaby carried on the wind, fragile threads of sound that seemed to weave stories into the silent darkness. She closed her eyes, letting the melody seep into her bones. It was a memory of a day long gone. Children chasing after a kite beneath a sky heavy with sunlight, laughter bubbling like a spring in a forgotten garden. The joy was bittersweet, a treasure buried deep beneath years of dust and longing. Sora's fingers trembled as she reached into her basket again, pulling out another glass bead, a sphere tinged with the faintest glimmers of amber and rose. Each bead carried its own fragment of history, a shard of happiness caught and preserved by the weeping sky. It was said that when the last crystal flower bloomed, the kingdom's memories would return in full, the laughter, the love, the moments that once filled the parched land with color. But the journey was long, and the desert endless. A sudden gust swept through the canyon, stirring the fine sands at her knees and sending a delicate cascade of glass beads tinkling softly against one another inside her basket. The sound was like a chorus of tiny bells, both beautiful and achingly fragile. Sora stood, shading her eyes against the moonlight. Somewhere in the distance, the dunes rolled and shifted like restless ghosts. She wrapped her robe tighter around her slender frame and began walking again, each step a slow beat in the vast silence. Memories were fragile things, easy to lose, harder still to reclaim. She thought of her mother, whose laughter once danced like sunlight on water. She thought of the stories told beneath the ancient trees of the Oasis of Whispers, now only a myth whispered by the desert winds. And she thought of the kingdom itself, once fertile and alive, now a vast expanse of forgotten dreams. Yet, Here in her hands, she held fragments of all that had been lost. As Sora crossed the dunes, the wind carried the softest echo of voices, ghosts of the past weaving through the night air. She listened, letting the whispers guide her steps toward the next canyon, where another flower awaited its birth. The desert might be vast and empty, but within its endless silence, the heartbeat of the past still pulsed, waiting, yearning to be remembered. By the time Sora reached the second canyon, the first light of dawn was bleeding across the horizon, a pale wash of rose and gold that softened the harsh edges of the desert. The wind had quieted to a gentle sigh, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and stone, as if the desert itself exhaled memories trapped deep within its heart. Sora knelt beside the cracked sandstone wall, eyes scanning for the perfect crevice, a cradle for the next glass tear. Her fingers brushed aside grains of sand, revealing a hollow shaped like a cupped hand. Carefully, she nestled the bead inside and pressed it with reverence. A pulse of light bloomed from the bead, translucent petals unfurling in a slow, shimmering spiral. The crystal flower sang again, a soft, melodic hum woven with the scent of forgotten spring rains and the distant murmur of a river long dried. Sora smiled, though her heart ached with the weight of the silence that surrounded her. Each flower was a beacon, a fragile vessel of joy rekindled, yet none could fill the void left by years of drought and neglect. She rose, brushing sand from her knees, and took a deep breath. The desert was a place of endless waiting, and she its patient guardian. With each glass tear she gathered, each crystal flower she planted, she pieced together the fractured memories of her people. Memories of laughter, of warmth, of love and loss. But the kingdom's silence was stubborn, its wounds deep. As she made her way along the canyon's edge, the sun's rays caught a shimmer in the sand ahead. Sora stopped, heart quickening. A cluster of glass beads, half buried beneath the grains, glistened like scattered stars. She knelt to gather them, careful not to disturb the fragile spheres. The largest bead, cool and heavy in her palm, pulsed faintly with a deeper glow than the others. Sora closed her eyes, letting the warmth spread through her fingertips. The memory it held was rich and vibrant, an echo of a festival long ago, where lanterns floated like fireflies beneath a rain of starlight, and the air was thick with music and hope. Tears stung her eyes, not from the desert's dryness, but from the aching beauty of a joy almost forgotten. Sora lifted her gaze to the canyon's depths, where shadows twisted like restless spirits. Somewhere beyond the dunes, the past waited patiently to be born anew. She whispered softly, "One day, all will bloom again." The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows that stretched like fingers across the dunes. Sora's footsteps left delicate impressions in the sand, soft traces of her passage through the barren sea. The weight of the basket at her side was a comforting presence, filled now with the scattered tears she had collected, each bead a fragile world cradling joy, hope, and sorrow. As she walked, the wind stirred again, carrying with it the faintest tinkling sound, like a chorus of distant bells echoing through the vast emptiness. It was a sound she had come to recognize as the whisper of the glass tears themselves, their voices longing to be heard. Sora paused at the lip of a narrow canyon, its walls etched with ancient runes that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. This place was sacred, a sanctuary where memories were said to linger longest, protected from the desert's relentless hunger. She stepped carefully into the cool shadow, the sudden silence wrapping around her like a cloak. Kneeling, she reached into her basket and withdrew a bead so delicate it seemed almost alive, its surface shimmering with the soft blue of twilight. With gentle hands, she planted it in a small crevice among the stones. The bead pulsed, and slowly, petals of crystal unfurled like delicate wings, catching the light and casting prismatic fragments across the canyon walls. The flower's hum grew louder, a melody woven with laughter, the warmth of a shared embrace, and the whisper of promises made beneath star-filled skies. Sora closed her eyes, letting the song wash over her, soothing the ache in her chest. A sudden movement at the canyon's mouth broke her reverie. "Sora," a voice called softly, carried on the wind. She turned to see a figure emerging from the heat haze. A tall man cloaked in sand-colored robes, his dark eyes reflecting the shimmering dunes. It was Kale, the desert's wandering storyteller, known for his tales that wove past and present into living breath. "You carry the sky's tears again," he said, nodding toward her basket. Sora smiled faintly. "And plant them where they will bloom." Kale stepped closer, his gaze lingering on the glowing flower. "The desert remembers because of you." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the basket. "But the kingdom still waits, for the rain, for the memories, for the joy to return." Kale's smile was both sad and hopeful. Perhaps one day, when the glass flowers sing loud enough, the sky will weep again. Not just tears, but rain. Sora looked out over the endless dunes, where the wind whispered secrets no one else could hear. She believed it too, because in the desert of glass tears, even the deepest silence held the promise of rebirth. The days that followed passed in a rhythm both relentless and sacred. Each dawn found Sora tracing the endless dunes, her hands gentle and steady as she searched for the scattered remnants of joy fallen from the sky. The desert seemed to watch her, its vastness both companion and challenge, a silent witness to her devotion. The glass beads glittered faintly beneath the relentless sun, their surfaces catching and refracting light like fragments of forgotten dreams. Some were small and fragile, holding a whisper of a smile or a stolen glance. Others were larger, pulsing softly with the echoes of grander moments. Weddings beneath fading stars, promises sealed with trembling hands, laughter shared beneath blooming orchards. At the heart of the kingdom lay the Canyon of Echoes, a place where the wind sang with the voices of the past, and where Sora planted the precious beads to bloom into crystal flowers. These blossoms grew swiftly, their petals unfolding like delicate lace, shimmering with the colors of memory. When the flowers sang, their hum stirred the canyon walls, coaxing the desert to remember. One evening, as the sky deepened to a velvet indigo, Sora found herself kneeling beside a particularly radiant flower. Its petals glowed with a soft golden light, and its song was a tapestry of warmth and laughter. A family gathered around a fire, stories weaving through the night like flickering flames. She let her fingers brush the petals, the warmth of the memory spreading through her. "You are not forgotten," she whispered, voice trembling with reverence. From the shadows, Kale appeared again, his eyes reflecting the flower's glow. "The desert listens, Sora. It remembers because you remind it how." She looked up at him, a sudden weight in her chest. "Do you ever wonder if the past will ever be enough? If these glass tears can truly bring back what we've lost?" Kale's smile was gentle but firm. "The past is not what brings us forward, but what teaches us to bloom anew. Each memory you plant is a seed of hope." Sora's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the first stars began to twinkle like distant tears themselves. The desert was still vast, still silent in many ways, but within its heart, the glass flowers sang louder with each passing day. And in their song was the promise that even in the driest silence, life could still bloom. Night deepened into a velvet black, punctuated by the sharp gleam of distant stars that seemed to burn with a cold, ancient fire. The desert around Sora lay still, the vast expanse silent but for the faint, crystalline hum of the blooming flowers tucked within the canyons. Each flower sang a melody, some joyous, some wistful, all fragments of a kingdom's heart long buried beneath layers of dust and forgotten time. Sora's fingers brushed against another glass tear, freshly gathered from the sands just before nightfall. This one was peculiar, darker, almost smoky, with veins of amber that pulsed faintly like the beat of a distant drum. It felt heavier than the others, weighted not just by memory but by something deeper, something aching. She hesitated for a moment before planting it into the cracked earth near the canyon's edge. The flower that bloomed was unlike any she had seen before, petals of smoky crystal, shimmering with an inner fire that seemed to flicker and breathe. Its hum was deeper, resonant, filled with the raw emotion of loss and yearning. Sora knelt, pressing her palm gently against the stone petals. The melody washed over her like a tide, and in it she heard the whisper of a voice soft, almost imperceptible. A mother's lullaby, a farewell spoken in the shadows of a dying day. Her breath caught, and tears she had long held back began to spill over, mingling with the dust on her cheeks. From the darkness, a soft voice spoke. "You carry more than memory now." Sora turned to find Kale approaching, his eyes reflecting the flickering light of the crystal flower. He came close, standing silently beside her. "The kingdom's sorrow dwells within that tear," he said quietly. "It is the weight of all that was lost, and all that might never return." Sora nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "And yet, it blooms." "Yes," Kale whispered, "because even sorrow needs a place to live, a song to sing." They sat side by side, the desert stretching endlessly beyond them, the chorus of glass flowers rising in a symphony that echoed through the silent canyons. In that moment, beneath the cold stars and the watchful sky, Sora understood that her journey was more than gathering memories. It was about embracing the full tapestry of the past, with all its light and shadow. And in doing so, she would help the desert sing again. Morning's first light spilled over the horizon, casting the desert in a soft glow that kissed the edges of each grain of sand. Sora rose from her place beside the smoky crystal flower, her spirit both burdened and uplifted by the weight it carried. The desert was a living tapestry woven of joy and sorrow, light and shadow, and she, the solitary weaver. Her robe fluttered like a banner caught in a gentle breeze as she set out once more, the basket heavy with glass tears cradled close. The dunes stretched before her, endless, unyielding, yet somehow alive with the promise of renewal. As she crossed a ridge, the wind shifted, carrying a scent unfamiliar yet compelling, earth, fresh and damp, as if the desert itself exhaled after a long, restless sleep. Sora's heart quickened. Ahead, in a sheltered basin nestled between towering sandstone spires, she glimpsed something extraordinary. A cluster of crystal flowers, their petals shimmering with an otherworldly light, humming a melody richer and deeper than any she had ever heard. She hurried forward, her breath catching as the flower's song wrapped around her like a warm embrace. These blossoms were different, full of life, vibrant and glowing, as if the desert was waking from its long slumber. Sora knelt among them, fingertips tracing the delicate petals. Each flower pulsed with a memory, a dance beneath moonlight, a whispered promise, the soft brush of hands in a time forgotten. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of hope. A sudden voice broke the stillness, a child's laughter, clear and bright as a spring stream. Sora looked up to see a young boy stepping out from behind a rock, his eyes wide with wonder. His clothes were simple, worn by the desert's harsh embrace, but his smile was radiant. "Are you the one who makes the flowers sing?" he asked, his voice trembling with awe. Sora smiled gently. "I gather the sky's tears and help the past bloom." The boy's eyes sparkled. "Will the rain come again?" She nodded, hope rising like the dawn. "Yes, one day, the desert will weep once more." He reached out, touching a crystal petal that glowed softly beneath his fingers. "I want to hear the stories." Sora's heart swelled. In this moment, the endless silence began to break, not with thunder or storm, but with the quiet stirrings of new life. And the desert, at last, began to remember. The boy's presence was like a fresh breeze cutting through years of stillness. Sora studied him, his dark curls tangled from the desert winds, eyes wide with innocent curiosity. In his small hands, the fragile crystal flower glimmered, its hum now a soft heartbeat that pulsed between them. "What's your name?" she asked, voice barely more than a whisper. "Talon," he replied, stepping closer, his bare feet stirring the sand with cautious excitement. "I live beyond the dunes, where the old well used to be. Mother tells me stories of rain, but I've never seen it." Sora nodded, a gentle smile curling her lips. "I carry the memories of rain in these flowers. Each one holds a piece of the sky's tears." Talon's gaze drifted across the glowing blossoms, his face alight with wonder. "Do the flowers remember everything?" "Almost," Sora said, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. They sing the joys and the sorrows, the hopes and the dreams forgotten by time. A sudden gust swept through the basin, stirring the petals in a shimmering dance. The melody swelled, weaving threads of laughter, of distant footsteps on sun-baked earth, and of soft whispers carried on the wind. Talon closed his eyes, letting the song wash over him. When he opened them, they gleamed with newfound understanding. "Will you teach me to gather the glass tears?" he asked. Sora hesitated. The desert was a harsh and lonely place, but the thought of sharing her sacred duty filled her with warmth. Slowly, she nodded. "Together," she promised, "we will help the desert remember." For the first time in years, Sora felt the weight of solitude lift, replaced by the fragile hope that life, like the crystal flowers, could bloom anew, even in the driest places. As the stars began to fade and the sky softened into dawn, the two figures stood side by side among the singing blossoms, a guardian and a child, bound by the promise of memory and the enduring magic of the desert of glass tears. The sun rose high, casting sharp, golden beams across the rippling dunes, setting the desert ablaze in warmth and light. Sora and Talon moved slowly through the sands, their shadows stretching long and thin beneath them. The boy's steps were light but eager, his eyes bright with the wonder of discovery. Sora taught him how to spot the faint glimmers hidden beneath the shifting sands, the glass tears left behind by the sky's sorrow. "Look closely," she whispered. "The desert hides its memories beneath layers of dust. They catch the light like tiny stars waiting to be found." Talon crouched, fingers sifting carefully through the grains until a bead sparkled in his palm. His breath caught, and he turned to Sora with a triumphant smile. "I found one." Sora smiled, pride blooming quietly in her chest. "Well done. Each tear holds a story. When we plant them, the flowers will sing those stories back to the desert." Together, they planted the beads in the sheltered nooks of the canyon walls. As each flower bloomed, the air shimmered with the delicate hum of memory. Echoes of old festivals, whispered promises, and laughter long forgotten. Talon listened, enraptured by the stories carried on the wind. "It's like the desert is alive," he said, his voice filled with awe. "It is," Sora replied softly, "because memories live within it, waiting for someone to remember." As the day waned, a breeze stirred the dunes, carrying with it a scent unfamiliar yet sweet, the faint promise of rain. Sora's heart quickened, a spark of hope igniting within her. "Do you feel it?" she asked. Talon nodded, eyes wide with wonder. "The desert is waking." Together, they stood beneath the vast sky, the crystal flowers glowing softly around them, silent sentinels of the past and harbingers of a future yet to come. The desert of glass tears was beginning to sing. The days grew warmer, the sun hanging like a great, relentless eye in the sky. But beneath its heat, the desert's pulse quickened, as if the land itself sensed the stirring of something long dormant. The crystal flowers multiplied, their petals shimmering like shards of dawn scattered across the canyon walls, each one humming a different thread of memory. Sora and Talon moved as one through the barren landscape, their steps light but purposeful. The boy's hands grew steadier, his eyes sharper, learning to read the desert's silent language. He laughed more often now, a clear, ringing sound that stirred the still air, a sound the desert hadn't heard in a long time. One evening, as the sun sank behind the dunes in a blaze of crimson and gold, Sora and Talon found themselves standing before a vast stone arch, a natural gateway carved by centuries of wind and sand. Beyond it lay the heart of the desert, a place whispered about in legends, the well of forgotten dreams. Sora's voice was barely audible as she spoke. "This is where the oldest memories sleep, buried deep beneath the sands." Talon's eyes gleamed with excitement and reverence. "Do you think the glass tears came from there?" "Perhaps," Sora replied, her gaze distant. "Or maybe the well is the source of something greater, the last hope of the kingdom." Together, they stepped through the archway, entering a hollow where the air was cooler, tinged with the scent of ancient stone and distant rain. The walls were etched with faded carvings, images of rivers, trees, and skies heavy with clouds. Sora knelt, tracing a delicate finger along a swirling pattern. "The past lives here," she whispered, "waiting for the day it can bloom again." Talon reached into his pouch and pulled out a handful of glass tears, their surfaces gleaming in the fading light. "Let's plant them here," he said. Sora nodded, a spark of hope kindling in her chest. As they pressed the beads into the earth, the ground beneath their hands seemed to hum, a deep vibration that resonated through the canyon. The glass tears pulsed with light, and slowly, crystal flowers began to bloom, petals unfolding in a radiant symphony of color and sound. The well of forgotten dreams awakened. For the first time in many years, the desert breathed anew. A soft murmur rose from the ground beneath their feet, a vibration that rippled through the air like the first breath of a long-dormant giant waking from slumber. The crystal flowers bloomed with urgent fervor, petals sparkling like liquid light, casting prisms on the canyon walls that danced in rhythm with the wind's gentle sigh. Sora's heart thrummed as she knelt beside the blossoming marvel. Her fingertips traced the delicate edges of a petal shimmering with iridescent blues and golds, a memory woven from the threads of hope and longing. The hum of the flower swelled, carrying whispers of promises kept and broken, of hands held in twilight and dreams etched into starlight. Talon crouched beside her, eyes wide with wonder. "Do you hear it?" he asked softly. Sora nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. The desert is remembering. Beyond the walls of the well, the dunes seemed to ripple with newfound life. A distant rumble rolled across the horizon, faint at first but growing steadily. A sound neither wind nor sand, but the murmur of something awakening beneath the earth. Sora stood, her gaze fixed on the horizon where dark clouds gathered, shifting and swirling in slow, deliberate dance. For a moment, the desert held its breath, waiting. Then the first drop fell, a solitary bead of water, cool and pure, landing softly on the sun-baked sand. Sora reached out a trembling hand, catching the drop and letting it slide over her palm. The sky above darkened, and the wind carried the sweet scent of rain. Talon laughed, the sound ringing clear and bright. "It's coming!" The rain grew, soft at first, then steady and sure, each drop a blessing, a healing, a gift from the sky itself. The desert drank deeply, the sands turning dark and fragrant under the life-giving flood. The glass flowers shimmered beneath the rain, their petals glowing with renewed brilliance, singing a chorus that rose to the heavens. Sora and Talon stood together, arms raised, faces turned upward to the cleansing storm. The desert of glass tears was alive again. The rain fell in silvery sheets, drumming softly against the desert's cracked bones. Each drop was a kiss from the sky, awakening the earth beneath to a song long silenced. Sora's robe clung to her slender frame, droplets tracing delicate paths down her face as she stood rooted among the blooming crystal flowers. Around her, the desert transformed, once a wasteland of dust and silence, now a living mosaic of sound and color. The flowers shimmered, their petals glistening like spun glass, reflecting the storm's light in fractured rainbows that danced across the canyon walls. Talon spun beneath the falling rain, laughter bubbling from his lips like a river breaking free. His bare feet splashed in puddles forming between the dunes, the joy in his eyes reflecting the wonder of the moment. Sora watched him and felt a warmth she hadn't known in years, a fragile hope blossoming deep within her chest. The desert was healing. The memories, the pain, the laughter, they were all coming back to life. As the storm softened to a gentle drizzle, Sora knelt beside one of the largest crystal flowers. The petals pulsed with a vibrant light, a heartbeat of the past merging with the present. She pressed her hand to the flower's core and closed her eyes. Visions flooded her mind. Ancient rivers carving through fertile lands, children running through orchards heavy with fruit, lovers whispering beneath skies painted with stars. The kingdom's soul, once fractured and fading, now surged through her veins like a living river. When she opened her eyes, Talon was beside her, watching with quiet awe. "The desert will never forget again," he said. "No," Sora agreed softly. and neither will we. Together, they rose, the storm's last droplets shimmering like jewels on their skin. The desert stretched before them, reborn. A kingdom of glass flowers, whispered memories, and the endless promise of rain. The desert of glass tears had wept its final sorrow. The morning sun broke through the retreating clouds, casting a gentle glow over the transformed desert. The once parched sands were softened and darkened by the rain, fertile and ready for new life. Crystal flowers sparkled like gems scattered across the canyons, their melodies weaving through the warm air, a symphony of rebirth and remembrance. Sora stood at the edge of a newly formed oasis, where clear pools of water reflected the sky like mirrors. Her gaze rested on Talon, who knelt beside the water, cupping it in his hands and lifting it to his lips. The boy's laughter, light and unburdened, echoed through the canyon like a song. "Look," Talon said, eyes bright with wonder. "The desert blooms again." Sora nodded, the corners of her lips lifting in a soft smile. "And we have a future to build." She reached into her basket and pulled out one last glass tear, a perfect, unblemished bead that shimmered with all the colors of dawn. This one she had saved for a special place, a symbol of hope and renewal. Together, they walked to the heart of the canyon, where ancient stones stood in silent vigil. Sora knelt and planted the final tear, feeling the earth pulse beneath her fingers. The flower that blossomed was radiant beyond anything she had seen, petals unfolding like a sunrise, casting a warm, golden light that bathed the desert in hope. Talon watched in awe as the flower's song filled the air, a melody of laughter, of tears, of dreams reborn. "Will the kingdom remember forever?" he asked. Sora's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "As long as there are those who remember, the past will never truly be lost." They stood together in the soft morning light, the desert alive around them, the glass tears transformed, the memories preserved, and the promise of rain eternal. The desert of glass tears was no longer a place of sorrow, but of life, and in its heart, Sora found peace. Weeks passed like the slow drift of clouds across the endless sky. The desert, once a barren expanse of sun-baked sand and silence, blossomed in ways unseen for generations. Crystal flowers carpeted the canyons and crevices, their delicate hums weaving a tapestry of memory and melody that filled the air with warmth. Sora and Talon traveled deeper into the kingdom, their footsteps light but sure. Where once only dust and wind had whispered, now the land thrummed with life. Tiny shoots of green pushing through the sand, small animals returning to the oasis, and the sweet, soft scent of blossoming flowers carried on the breeze. Each day, Sora taught Talon the sacred art of gathering glass tears, how to listen to the desert silence, to find the hidden shards of joy beneath the sand, and to plant them carefully where the earth could sing. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, they reached the rim of a vast plateau overlooking the heart of the kingdom. Below, the transformed desert stretched out like a living mosaic, pools of water glistening in the fading light, crystal flowers sparkling like stars scattered across the land. Talon's eyes widened. "It's more beautiful than I ever imagined." Sora smiled, the soft lines of years etched gently on her face. "It is the kingdom's heart beating again." A gentle breeze stirred, carrying the soft tinkling of glass petals and the distant murmur of water flowing. The desert was no longer silent. It hummed with the stories of those who had come before and those yet to come. Sora reached out, taking Talon's hand in hers. The past lives in the present, and the future blooms from both. Together, they watched as the last light faded and the stars blinked awake, silent witnesses to a desert reborn. The desert of glass tears had become a kingdom of hope. The night sky stretched wide and infinite, scattered with stars like shards of glass themselves, each one a distant beacon in the vastness. Sora lay on her back among the crystal flowers, their soft hum mingling with the gentle whisper of the desert wind. Beside her, Talon's breath came steady and calm, his eyes reflecting the constellations overhead. For the first time in what felt like forever, the weight in Sora's chest had lifted. The desert was healing, and so was she. She turned her head to look at the boy, his face serene and peaceful. "Do you remember why the sky weeps?" she asked softly. Talon nodded slowly. "Because it misses what was lost. But now it remembers, and it's starting to hope." Sora smiled, the warmth of his words settling like a balm over her heart. "Yes, the glass tears carry the memories, but it's our hope that makes them bloom." The desert around them pulsed faintly, a rhythm in tune with their own. The flowers glowed softly, their melody a lullaby of rebirth and renewal. Sora closed her eyes, letting the song wash over her. She could hear the laughter of children, the rustling of leaves in distant forests, the murmurs of rivers long vanished. The kingdom's soul was alive again, woven from threads of past and present, pain and joy. When she opened her eyes, the first light of dawn was creeping over the horizon, casting the desert in hues of rose and gold. Sora rose, stretching her arms toward the sky. "It's time to return." Talon stood beside her, his smile bright and full of promise. Together, they began the journey back to the village beyond the dunes, a place waiting to be reborn with the memories they carried. The desert of glass tears was no longer a land of sorrow, but a home of light. The journey back was quieter, filled with the soft crunch of sand beneath their feet and the occasional tinkling of glass flowers swaying in the gentle breeze. The desert no longer felt empty, it thrummed with unseen life, a silent symphony beneath the vast sky. Sora and Talon moved side by side, their shadows long and intertwined on the warm sand. The boy's eyes gleamed with excitement and a newfound sense of purpose, while Sora's heart swelled with a hope she hadn't dared to feel in years. As they approached the village, the faint outlines of worn stone homes came into view, structures half buried in sand but stubbornly standing against time. Smoke curled from chimneys and the faint murmur of voices drifted on the air. Children played near a well, their laughter ringing clear and joyful. Elders sat beneath ancient trees, sharing stories and songs. The village, once forgotten, was waking. Sora's breath caught. She looked at Talon, whose grin mirrored her own. "Let's bring them the flowers," she said softly. Together, they carried the glowing blossoms into the heart of the village, planting them in gardens, along streets, and near the well. Each flower sang its melody, weaving threads of memory and hope through the fabric of the community. Slowly, the villagers gathered, drawn by the shimmering petals and the haunting melodies. Their eyes widened in wonder as forgotten stories danced on the breeze, filling their hearts with warmth and remembrance. An old woman approached Sora, tears shining in her eyes. "You've brought the kingdom back to life," she whispered. Sora smiled, her gaze steady. The memories never left, they were waiting for us to remember. As night fell, the village glowed with the light of 1,000 crystal flowers. The desert of glass tears was home again, and in that light, a new story began. The village breathed with a renewed spirit, the once dormant heart of the kingdom now beating strong beneath the shimmering glow of crystal flowers. Streets that had been silent for decades hummed with the laughter of children, the chatter of neighbors, and the rhythms of daily life returning. Sora wandered through the gathering crowd, her eyes reflecting the flickering light of the blossoms. Faces once marked by weariness now shone with hope and curiosity. The stories held within each glass tear wove a tapestry of connection, reminding everyone that they were bound by shared history and dreams. Talon darted between the villagers, his youthful energy a spark of joy. He stopped beside an elder man whose weathered hands trembled as he reached out to touch a glowing petal. "This flower sings my mother's lullaby," the elder whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I thought I had forgotten it." Sora knelt beside him, offering a gentle smile. "The desert never forgets. It carries our memories like seeds waiting to bloom." The night deepened, the stars above twinkling as if rejoicing in the kingdom's rebirth. From the far edges of the village, a soft melody rose, the chorus of crystal flowers singing in unison, a lullaby for a land healing from sorrow. Sora felt a warmth spread through her, a quiet certainty that the journey she had begun was only the beginning. The desert's tears had become a wellspring of life, and through memory and hope, the kingdom would flourish once more. As the villagers gathered beneath the starlit sky, sharing stories and songs, Sora knew that the desert of glass tears had found its voice again, and with it, a future worth dreaming. Days melted into weeks, and the kingdom thrived under the tender care of its people, their spirits rekindled by the glass flowers that hummed with memory and hope. The once lonely dunes now blossomed with life, and the desert air was filled with the scent of blooming petals and fresh earth. Sara stood atop a dune, watching the village below, children playing in the newfound shade of crystal trees, elders teaching the young to listen to the flowers' songs, and families gathering near the wells now brimming with rainwater. Her heart swelled with pride and peace. Beside her, Talon's laughter carried on the wind as he chased after a group of children, his energy boundless. She smiled at the boy's boundless curiosity, the spark of life that had grown within him. "You've come a long way," she said softly. Talon paused, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked up at her. "We all have. The desert isn't just a place anymore. It's our home." Sara nodded, her gaze drifting to the horizon where the first hints of a new storm gathered. Dark clouds rolled slowly, heavy with promise. "The sky is remembering too," she murmured. As the rain began to fall once more, soft, steady, and sure, the desert seemed to awaken fully. The glass flowers shimmered brighter than ever, their songs weaving through the storm like threads of light. In that moment, beneath the rain-soaked sky and the singing blossoms, Sara understood that the kingdom's story was eternal, woven from the tears of the past, the hope of the present, and the dreams yet to come. The desert of glass tears had found its soul. The rain drummed steadily against the desert earth, transforming the landscape with every drop. Pools gathered in the hollows, reflecting the silver sky, and the scent of wet sand and blooming crystal flowers filled the air like a whispered promise. The once dry kingdom now pulsed with life, reborn through the delicate interplay of memory and renewal. Sara stood in the center of the village square, surrounded by the vibrant blossoms she had nurtured for so long. The petals glowed softly beneath the rain, casting prismatic light that danced across the faces of the gathered villagers. They looked to her with gratitude and hope, their eyes shining like the glass tears she had collected. Talon approached, holding a single crystal flower cradle gently in his hands. He handed it to Sara with a shy smile. "For you," he said simply. She accepted it, feeling the warmth radiate from its core, a symbol of all they had endured and all they had yet to become. The village elder stepped forward, voice strong and steady. "We will never forget again," she declared. "The desert's tears have become our lifeblood, and its memories our legacy." Sara nodded, tears mingling with the rain on her cheeks. The glass flowers sang around them, a chorus of laughter, tears, and dreams, binding past and future in a timeless song. As the storm began to wane, a brilliant arc of light stretched across the sky, a rainbow born from the desert's tears and the kingdom's hope. It was a promise etched in color, a bridge between what was lost and what was yet to be. Sara lifted her eyes to the heavens, heartful. The desert of glass tears had wept its final sorrow, and from those tears a new life had blossomed. The end.